Welcome to Susan's Enchanted Crossroads, a podcast that helps you navigate your journey through the crossroads. I'm Susie, and together we will be taking a deeper look into witchcraft and spirituality. So settle in, and let's get this episode going. Hello, gorgeous soul. Thank you so much for listening in. I am going to give a gentle warning for this episode. There are going to be some trigger warnings here. In this episode, we do discuss death, domestic violence, gun violence as part of spiritual bypassing. I will be going into some details over a friend and a beautiful person who was lost in the beautiful spiritual community. If this feels it might be too heavy or you don't feel grounded in listening to this at this time, that is absolutely okay. You need to take care of you, as I always say, mundane over magic. Know that if you need anyone to talk to, I'm going to link some numbers down in the show notes. Know that you are a big part of this beautiful world and this universe. And if anything, I hope you find comfort in this community that I am building. You know that you can reach me. There's links in the show notes. But I did want to give this warning. And if and when you're ready, you can always return to it. If you would like to go back a few episodes and maybe re listen to an episode that maybe you would be needing at this time, I would definitely do that. But let's go ahead and get started. Hello, gorgeous soul. I'm going to be very honest. This episode is a little bit heavy. And not just on the topic that I am discussing today, because if you're part of my Patreon, I did post on Spirituality, which is my secondary podcast that I just started. So don't feel like you're behind. But I was discussing some things and I was going to be talking about spiritual bypassing. You may have noticed that I did not drop an episode last week. And I had been walking what feels like through a fog. And I'm going to go ahead and let you know exactly what has been happening on my end. I might get choked up here and there, but that is part of me being okay with being vulnerable with you as my audience, and just being authentic, to be very honest. I learned exactly a week when this drops ago that my beautiful friend Ashlee Summer McPeak was shot by her, I guess, ex-boyfriend. He was abusive. It is a cycle that is very, very hard and very scary, and it's just hard to break. I love, I don't, it's like it's so hard for me to say past tense, right? Because she's no longer with us, but I love Ashlee to the moon and back. When I was getting out of my own relationship that was very toxic and in doing some research and really getting to know what I was experiencing, it was abuse. At the time, you know, because I was with this person for 15 years, I, one, didn't think it was abuse. But the people who are abusive are very good at the game that they play. And in my instance, he was a narcissist. He was so charming. I was younger than him, very naive. And a lot of the things, when I finally started putting pieces together and really getting fed up, was when I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? This is wrong. And I'd always known it wasn't right. But like I had said before, like my ego was getting in the way a little bit. Um, I always want to help people. And I don't know if I really want, it wasn't that, at least from what what I was going through right in therapy, that I was trying to fix him in quotes, but it was almost like giving someone another chance, right? And then that is where that emotional abuse comes from, right? Because it's like, "Ugh, you're crazy. That's not what that means. Or, when you don't do this, it's lazy. Or, and I'll give examples later, but the point that I'm making here is that those cycles are very, very hard to break. And it can be very scary and unsafe. And when I got out of that relationship, this was pre-COVID, so I was getting into my spiritual practice. I was like, oh my God, I do have these gifts. I'm not crazy. Um, I have these abilities. And before I had met Ashley, I had a beautiful friend, Gabby. She's wonderful, and she's the one that kind of just tossed me in to the world of tarot reading because I was doing readings for myself, but never like others, you know. And Gabby's the first to introduce me to tarot and Reiki because I had no idea what those were, really, truly. Um, and then COVID hit and TikTok was taking off, and that's when I found these beautiful people online, and Ashley was one of them. And at first, I'm enamored, right? I'm like, wow, this person is so sure of herself. She just reads, and not just a reader. She knew history and crystals, and she's Aries, so that fiery energy. And I loved that she was so blunt. And, but to a point where it was like that big sister energy. And I guess because I'm the oldest, I'm more like that. Like I'm very nurturing and I'll take care of you. But Ashley was also that sister, like, no, dude, don't fuck around like that. Like, do this, do it, go for it. Your biggest supporter, she would shout out a bunch of people, from crystal shops to everything, she would help promote them. And they would take off. When I went to visit my sister, we had plans to meet up, but at the last minute, like she's like, dude, my car is not working. And I'm worried to drive it kind of far to meet you halfway. And I didn't have a rental. So I was like, you know what? Next year, don't worry about it. I'm going to be back next year. And it was a date. Um, she was a guest on my podcast. She was going to be a guest on this podcast because I had a podcast before this one where I co-hosted. Um, every year on my birthday, she read my cards because I could do it myself, obviously, but I loved when she read my cards on my birthday for my birthday. So I know I'm already anticipating that for next month. It's gonna hurt. Um, Ashley wasn't without faults, right? Like we all are. But within the community, as the news came out, um, I mean, obviously there's some terrible people saying some terrible things, and we got on top of that, but we all came together. And that's why I really push all of this, right? That sense of community, a sense of not feeling that you're weird and um, you don't have any support. I love podcasting because when I was coming into all of this, I wanted to do everything and anything I could get my hands on. And Ashley was there to guide me as well as other people, right? I've talked to you before. I've had Elena on the show and I've had Molly and Renee and Brandy and just so many people I could name that were just so welcoming that have been practicing longer than I have. Um, and just guiding me, making me like I felt at home. And so when I created this podcast, even as an extension from the last podcast, because sometimes it can be hard, trying to figure out schedules with another person. And I mean, we did great, but I wanted to continue podcasting. It just felt right. It felt like I wanted to give back because maybe someone who was me back then would stumble upon this podcast and learn about grounding, or someone who's already been in it for a few years finds this podcast. It's like, oh, wow, I never thought of doing, dark moon rituals like that, or looking up at the quarter moon to do some spell work and to bring in guests because I don't know everything, y'all. And I don't want to know everything. I love being a student. I love learning. So, yeah, I will be very honest in saying that this grief is holding on to me in a way I have yet to feel like, and let me be very clear, death is not new to me. When I was very young, my grandmother was very sick, and so she was in and out of hospitals. I've been in hospitals, staying in the waiting room, and just being around it all the time, and people being sad and praying the rosary and coming together and trying to figure. I've been through all of that. I've had childhood friends pass suddenly in accidents, and friends, siblings that have passed, and we were all close together, and that was also very quickly. So it's not that I don't know this, but this right now, it's just, I'm so sad. And a lot of it, like, and if you know grief, it goes in stages, right? You'll have the guilt and then you'll have the anger. The guilt, yeah, I wish I could, I guess because I've been in the situation, it's hard to say something to somebody, and it's not like they don't know. And it's almost like, what do I need to say, or what can I do in order to help you, to guide you out of this, to kind of break the cycle, cut that cord. But it also has to be something within you that drives you a little bit harder. Um, and then even then you leave and it's these people just have their way. So in that case, I don't, it's guilt, yes, but I just have that empathy. Like I understand. I know. And as far as anything else, I've just been kind of existing. I've just been kind of here. Very meh, very kind of numb to things. And of course, when you have something like this, right, you start thinking like, we're talking about something so menial right now, you know? And I'm talking about going back to work because on top of everything else, summer's over and I've been back to work now for a few days. And it's really, one, I was already feeling like I'm not even ready to go back. It doesn't feel like I've had enough time to physically, mentally, emotionally recover from the previous school year. And I'm already coming back into it. And then add this on top. It's almost like, why am I sitting in this meeting, you know? And if you're listening to this out there and you're going through it, or you have, or maybe you're still are grieving, you're not alone. And I'm fortunate enough to have had I don't know what came over me. I think a part of it was I just wanted to help. So when I first learned about it, I reposted right away because there is a GoFundMe, which I'll link here, if you can donate. And there's a GoFundMe for Ashlee's daughter, April, to help her and to help the family and what they're going to need in continuing to give her give her a chance, you know. Um, I'm sure counseling and trying to give her whatever normalcy that they can. Um, so I posted and some people, saw and very beautiful words were said. And this is where we're going to come into spiritual bypassing in a bit. Um, I did have to go out and get out of the house, wrap my brain around what was happening. I had to get out. That's why I'm like, sometimes you just need to get out in nature. And I don't got nature. I'm in a desert. Um, so whatever trees I could talk to or just touch, thank goodness. Um, so I'm thankful to do that. Obviously, I told my husband and he's been supportive. And if you're feeling you need more support, you need more someone to talk to, don't hesitate to reach out to a friend or a family member, um, someone in your community, or even just, you know, calling a helpline. There's so many beautiful resources that I know that there's a stigma around them and how sad that there is, but they do need to be utilized. I will always say, first, mundane over magic, take care of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with you, and your feelings are valid. And it's okay to talk to a therapist or a counselor. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we need that outside perspective. And it might take you a few tries to find someone that really fits you. And giving yourself the time because this will take time. These things do take time. So, spiritual bypassing, what is it? What happens? Why do people do it? And I'll preface by saying you might have done some of these things yourself. The first part is saying, like, acknowledging it. I know I've said a couple of these things before because one, sometimes it's learned behavior. As I said, it's not the first time I've been around death or the second or the third, of course. Um, and people would tell me these things. And sometimes you stop and think and you're like, oh, huh. But when you're young and someone tells you these things, then you're like, oh, is that what is the norm? So, spiritual bypassing is the tendency to use like these spiritual explanations to avoid some some complex issues, right? Um, so I'm just going to read this off my notes. The term was first coined during the early 1980s by a transpersonal psychotherapist named John Wellwood in his book Toward a, Psych- a Psychology of Awakening. So, according to Wellwood, spiritual bypassing can be defined as a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. So, what does all that mean? Basically, people use this as a shield or some kind of like defense mechanism. So instead of working through these emotions, these heavy emotions, these big emotions, or confronting issues that are unresolved, people would simply just, it's fine, meh, dismiss it, right? And a lot of it with spiritual explanations. Um, Now, sometimes in certain circumstances, it could be a way to protect yourself from harm. Um, but it doesn't resolve the issue. It just kind of it's like you're glossing over it, right? But it's like I've talked about with shadow work. The shadow is a part of you. It's not evil, it's not bad, it's just part of who you are. And some of that, yes, is trauma, but you can't keep pushing it down because it's gonna bubble over. So it's like if you're boiling some spaghetti, and you have that flame or that heat on high. At some point, you're going to see the bubbles, it's going to start bubbling. And if you're not watching it, what happens? That pasta water just boils over. And complicated feelings and issues is hard. And if you feel like this is something you probably can't or shouldn't be doing on your own, by all means, talk to someone, have someone there. Now, when we say spiritual bypassing, now that we know who coined it, it's common for people with good intentions, good hearts to engage in this spiritual bypassing, right? Because it makes it easy to kind of like miss the negative impacts, right? It's not that the people that are doing this are all inherently bad or trying to be mean or hurt you at the time. Sometimes it's learned behavior also, like I said. I understand that we all have parts of us that we'd rather not look at. That's our shadow self, right? Or we deny or push it down, we bury it. But they're always going to start coming out. That's what prevents the healing from occurring. This is also, if we're going to look at the individual, now let's look at the society. Now, I know this is everywhere, but especially if you're in the States, there have been some uncomfortable reality and injustices, things that need to be acknowledged and things that need to be addressed. But for whatever reason, right, in this spiritual bypassing, people want to sweep it under the rug and say, no, 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 that didn't happen. And when we avoid facing these problematic issues in our society, in our history, then we're not validating the lives and the experiences that happened. That is not a healthy system. I know I don't have to reiterate that, but spiritual bypassing is not just the individual, it's a societal thing. So think about like love and light. When you first hear it, it's like, oh yeah, like love and light. Like, why can't we be loving and be light workers? We need more of this love and light in our society and in our homes and within each other. But then you get down to the root of it, it's like, well, we don't want to keep pushing that. That's negative stuff. We'll look this way and it'll be fine. No, that's worse. That's that approach circumvents the roots of the issue at hand and it causes further harm. Um, in our spiritual community, right? You would think like, oh, we're tapping into energies, we understand therapy and we understand uh, emotional and behavioral changes and we get that we need to be able to root and ground ourselves and be specifically like in tune, especially with our intuition. But there's still people in this area, right? Where it's just love and light. These healing practices, or you cannot continue a healing practice if you're not willing to do a lot of the work. I cannot teach you, my dear listener, if I myself don't do the work. I don't want to misguide you. I want you to see everything for what it is. That's why I tell you, like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert. Shoot, mundane over magic, I can give you the protection spell, but maybe you gotta lock the front door too. We, as much as we would like to travel in the astral world, we still live in this reality, in this timeline. But we can still continue to heal that as long as we continue to do our own work. All right, let me just peek at my notes. Spiritual bypassing is a way of hiding behind spirituality or spiritual practices. It prevents people from acknowledging what they're feeling and distances them from both themselves and others. So, here are just some examples. Avoiding feeling anger or anything besides quote unquote happiness and joy. Believing that your own spiritual superiority is a way to hide from your insecurities. So putting yourself on top. And that's one thing I loved about Ashlee is I was like, I was so new and she was, obviously practicing way longer and had a lot of followers and, she was always booked out for readings. And I remember like I'm like, oh, I want you to be like my mentor, take me under your wing, be my teacher. And she's like, what are you talking about? We all have these abilities. It's just, I can help, I can give you some insight, some guidance, but you've got this. And I didn't know at the time how much I really needed to hear that. Now, it's okay to get a mentor. I had one. I still needed one. I felt like I needed one. But at the end, I was like, you know what? I do got this. She never put herself like, I'm better than you because I've been doing this a hell of a lot longer than you, so don't even say anything to me. She was never that way. Um, believing that traumatic events must have served as a learning experience or happened for a reason kind of thing, like above and beyond, like we could never understand. Believing that your spiritual practice um is always positive, like meditation is always positive, your prayers are always positive. Nah. That's why when people are like, oh, you shouldn't be hexing, you shouldn't do return to sender, it's gonna come back to you two, threefold or whatever, because they believe in that law if you're Wiccan, but not everybody is that way. And some of those people are like, ugh, you're just doing it wrong. Yes, you're just not supposed to do that. No, because what do I tell you? Your practice is your own. Other things is only focusing on spirituality and ignoring the present. I see this also. It's almost like a way for you, it's like a crutch and you disassociate a lot more. And you just say, oh, it's because I'm in meditation and I need this, da da da, but you're not facing your own reality in the present. Only being focused on positive, even projecting your own negative feelings onto people, pretending that things are fine when they are not, thinking that you have to rise above your emotions. So again, this is just things, these are just some examples. There's so many more, but this is just glossing over a problem just to make us feel better in the short term, but long term, it's not going to help you. Now, sometimes it's very subtle. You might not be able to see it right away or even notice if perhaps you're doing it. But as I sit in my grief, um, and I've gotten a lot better because, again, things were like, it's told to me, right? Like there's a death. And just telling relatives, family, survivors of the person that has passed, they're in a better place now. This is all part of God's plan. And that doesn't I'm sorry, that doesn't fucking help at all. That makes you as a person feel better because you said something, but we don't want to think like, oh, yes, they're in a better place wherever that is, whatever that means. But I don't want them to be in a better place. I want them to be here with me because I feel like I'm a good place too, as someone who's grieving. Also, if you are upset about something, this is another example, right? You're upset about something and something that needs to be done, right? Like this has gone too far. This is not right. And you are trying to change something, and people are, or your quote unquote friends are telling you to stop being so negative all the time. Hmm. So instead of rallying behind the friend, right? You're just like, just leave things alone. Like stop being so negative. It's fine. Again, that word, right? Let's take it a little step further in society, and let's look at how we are all one race, but when this whole thing came out with all lives matter, now, yes, we are all human beings, right? That's true. But in our reality, in this timeline, this is a harmful dismissal of the world that we are living in and how we're not treating everyone like a human being, like we're all the same. Same could be said with safety, as I've said before, like especially like in our schools, healthcare, I've talked about, housing, food, Educate basic human freaking needs, right? And yes, all of that matters, but when we're looking at the color of someone's skin, history tells us that people don't see them as. I never thought I would ever encounter racism in this day and age, and I have. And it's so that in itself, it's like, ugh, well, I don't see color. Well, all lives matter. Bro, that in itself is a part of spiritual bypass. Because instead of having these uncomfortable discussions, we are participating in the avoidance of doing our own part, just speaking up. Yeah, but we're obviously not equal. Not everything is beneficial for everybody. And going off of that, then we have focus on the positive, love and light, good vibes only, that kind of bullshit. That is called toxic positivity, which that is can be so detrimental when you're struggling with mental health, with trauma, injustices, grief. So if someone is struggling with the mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and someone is just turning around, just don't be sad. Just be just be happy. Be positive. I'm sorry. You know what? No one's ever told me that before. You're so right. Let me just focus on the positive. Duh. Love and light. Saying that is not helping the person. What is causing your anxiety? What is causing you to be negative about this right now? And when you sit and actually have that uncomfortable conversation, which not necessarily has to be uncomfortable, taking time to actually listen to the person and what's happening, you can learn a lot. So, for example, if someone were to approach me, right, and I'm in a bleh mood. I'm not happy to be here, but I am happy to be at least out of the house. I don't want to be around people, but I kind of don't want to be around, by myself ish. When a friend says, "What's wrong? You're at least you're not at least a little happy. It's a brand new year, blah blah blah." I'm not really feeling it at all, and I can list all the negative things, right? And like that attitude is what's going to cause you to have a bad year. So you should really just focus on the positive. Whoo. Versus, oh my gosh, that's a lot of heaviness. Or like, did you feel this way last year, or is there something different as you're coming into this year? Then maybe I'd have been like, I just feel like there's just been a mental heaviness. I have two, three brand new things that are implemented on in my subject area only that now I have to do all of this and I'm carrying a heaviness from the loss of a friend. Oh my goodness. And it opens the door for conversation instead of just, you really should just try to be happy or be thankful you have a job. Or if you don't like it, just quit. Those, my dear, beautiful, gorgeous souls, that's spiritual bypassing. Saying things like, everything happens for a reason. You create your own happiness. It was for the best. This might be a blessing in disguise. Thoughts and prayers. This is just the surface level things that you say because you're not getting down to whatever it is. And it's not giving anybody comfort. I'm sorry, or insight. Like there's just nothing there about whatever this difficult situation is that you are helping. It was for the best. What? What? And me hearing thoughts and prayers, I'm so fucking sick of that. Ugh, thoughts and prayers to that family. What do you mean, thoughts and prayers? Can we have a genuine conversation on why people need these kinds of guns, military grade guns? And there's no like big background check. And I'm not saying we take care, we take away all guns, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying have a stricter background process than we have right now. Extensive. Why can't we have that? And so those are the difficult conversations, right? It's because now, children have lost their lives, families are grieving. I remember when we had a shooter drive down because of his hate for Hispanics, drive into my city, walk into a Walmart and open fire. And the anniversary is coming up on August 3rd. And all we get is, I mean, not all, but people were just like, oh my goodness, everything happens for a reason, thoughts and prayers. No, there's no reason. This was a hate crime. What do you mean? Why do you have access to that gun? That type of gun. So when we talk about spiritual bypassing, because I'm not just here to like rag on everyone, right? Um, Even though it's very, very important that we discuss these things because we want to be able, one, now that you can recognize it, maybe, maybe you've done it yourself. I'll be honest, I've done it myself too, because again, I didn't know, one, I didn't know any better. And two, sometimes it's hard to start that conversation. Or when someone is like sobbing in front of you and you don't do well with that, it's like, I myself have said, you know what? I'm so sorry for your loss. My condolences. I feel like I don't know what to say. I'm here. You can tell me a happy memory or do you want to take a walk or something? Sometimes the other person doesn't need a lot of talk. Sometimes they just need to feel that energy around them. It's okay to be and hold a little bit of silence. So, yes, spiritual bypassing is also, like I said before, a form of a defense mechanism. It protects us from things that seem too painful, too real, especially to deal with. However, ignoring it and avoiding it really just causes more harm than good, right? More stress in the long term. And sometimes when you keep pushing that down, pushing that down, pushing that down, it's just going to rear up and it's going to come up probably at a time where, ugh, at a bad time or not the best time. And you have piled so much on it, it might just be a, added more that's going to come out. I didn't word that at all. Well, what I'm trying to say is the more that you push it down and you can continue to keep piling things on and saying these things, right? It happened for a reason. This is God's plan. Um, it's my fault, or you know what, I am too negative. When you start piling those things on, there's always a breaking point, right? I always think of like the Ten of Wands where you're just carrying all these things. But as we come into even our society, we also want to be able to see and spot toxic positivity because sometimes that is a driving force. You know what? Silver lining is this. I'm not saying you can't see the positive out of a negative. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is to make sure that you're not using this positivity or this positive outlook as a band-aid to healing something a little deeper. Because as we achieve our happiness, it, sometimes we go through some difficult or painful emotions or some growing pains, right? It's not all, I'm telling you, what did I see on social media? It was like, it was a post. Um, And it's okay. So, you know, an Instagram post, right, is square. So on the top part, or maybe let's say it's a carousel. And on one is a picture of like what people think coming into your spiritual practices. And it's like light pink and like purples and it's candles. And it's like I've seen one where it's the Sound of Music where she's like singing in the field with her arms open and she's just elated. And then you look either below or you scroll, right? You look at the next slide on the carousel, and it's basically the tower card and like a thunderstorm. And you're just like going fucking through it. Yeah, because you're not wearing the mask anymore. Now it's like looking at things and seeing, like, wow, I really, really need to work on these things. Like it's these things that come out, but in the process, you're healing yourself. Um, and sometimes, like for myself, like I'm hard on myself, so I have like mm, that negative, like self-talk and not well, that frustration, because I want everything to be perfect. But we don't want to have that because then we have control problems, right? Or then we have codependency or feelings of shame when we don't do things correctly. And that's just denying our emotions, right? Because it's like, why can't I ask for help? Well, because when I would ask for help, I'd be like, oh, you're so lazy. You can't do anything by yourself. Ugh, that's not my voice. That was somebody else. And so now it's like, that's right. I can't be lazy. I can't sit on the sofa because you know what? I should be doing something else. Because honestly, like spiritual bypassing could be a tool to gaslight others as well into staying silent, right? Instead of being allowed to express your pain from people who are harming you, these things are very harmful. And we don't want to dismiss other people's emotions. We don't want to deny difficult emotions. We don't want to avoid our responsibility or judging others. Let me tell you that anger is a normal emotion, just as joy is. And as that comes up, anger could be a reasonable reaction to whatever's happening. Now, if you are have a short fuse, then that's when you stop and you look at yourself and why do I, why am I quick to anger? What is it? Like, yes, I should be angry, but should I be at this level of angry? And those are your action steps, right? That is looking at your shadow self or that whatever it is that you're trying to deal with, these emotions, which is anger or jealousy or disappointment, in healthy ways. We want to make sure that you build awareness. Okay. Like I said, sometimes maybe you're the one that has done or said these things. That's okay. Now you can sit and say, "Oh shit. Yeah, that's me." Right? But we're understanding the intention versus the impact. I didn't mean to, rather than saying, shit, yeah, I didn't mean to do this. I totally did that thing. And either you're apologizing or, you're saying, God, I'm trying to understand like why this happens and having that empathy, right? That trust. And for some of us, that's hard. Trust me, friends. I know. Now, I feel like this was an important episode before I learned of Ashlee's passing, right? Before her life was taken from her. I felt like this was very important to share on spiritual bypassing because I want us to be better as a community. I don't know what words I want to say here, right? Because I know a lot of the things that I have done, it was learned, like I had said, right at a young age. Um, and unless someone tells you something, or sometimes something just clicks in you, it's like, I don't know, saying thoughts and prayers just doesn't sit right with me anymore. Or it just seems like such a blanket. If you're gonna type in the comment section thoughts and prayers, and then you scroll right past, that is spiritual bypassing. Now, if you're saying my thoughts and my prayers are going out to this family and you're actually doing things, there needs to be reform. I donated to the Red Cross. I know that there's other organizations reaching out. It's what you're also doing. If you're just thoughts and prayers and you're out, it's like I had said before when we had the flooding here in Texas. People are saying like, don't make this political. Uh, children's lives were lost and people lost their lives. Da, da, da. Yes, because why? It's not like people were saying, I don't know. I can't even say anything there, It was to bring awareness. This should not have happened. Yes, this is happening in our world, but why did this happen? Why do shootings happen in schools, in movie theaters, in concerts? The damage that it wreaks havoc on. How is it that I, as an educator, have to sit and listen to police officers give us a training on what to do if and when an active shooter were to come onto our campus or anywhere? The tactics, the list of things that I gotta do or I could do. What could go wrong? What could go right? Seriously? Instead of doing what? Going back and continue to go back and say, who is in position to make these changes to gun violence? This is why I feel that spiritual bypassing and learning about it is so important because I don't want it to stunt our growth as a person. The way that you could fulfill to your potential. And really visiting and meditating on things. It's like, why are you meditating on this? Are you trying to disassociate because there's something that you're avoiding? Or are you really starting to tap into that, to that root and especially me within my grief right now, I'm not saying that when you set into meditation is going to be easy. Meditation has been hard for me to get into. Um, I've had to reach out for help because right now it's very raw, but now I can see that for myself. Now, before, I probably in my unhealed self would have just cried, maybe by myself. Well, one, I would have cried by myself because I didn't feel safe crying in front of anybody else. I felt shamed and ridiculed for it. Um, but also, I would have said my piece and, I'm sad, and then maybe be sad in front of people for a little bit and pretend everything's okay. Because why? Well, that was that was my friend, but somebody lost their sister and their daughter and their mother. Like, I have no business being this level of sad when her immediate family is really going through it. That is spiritual bypassing. It's confronting that discomfort. And sometimes, my beautiful friend, when it's all you've known for years and years and years, it's okay to take that first step and acknowledging that. I had to acknowledge it. I would shove a lot down, a lot. Now I can feel open and a little vulnerable. Now I still say, "Ugh, I'm so sorry," to start crying. No, why should I be sorry? This is the emotion. I lost somebody. Or why am I sorry for your, getting angry when there was a perfectly good reason to be upset? As long as you're not using whatever it is that you're doing as a shield to not do the work, right? So, what are some things you can do? One, at least recognizing it, right? Sometimes recognizing it can be hard. It's like, oh shit, do I freaking do that? I do that. Or you know what? That has been told to me, and I remember wanting to punch that person's lights out because how dare you tell me that? Life is not just good thoughts, good feelings, good emotions, period, all the time. No. This is why we have the Tower card in tarot. Not that that's a negative card, but sometimes the foundation wasn't set and things have to come down. But shit, that's gonna feel like shit sometimes, man. But then right after you have the Star card and it's rebirth, and then you're finding, you know what? Yeah, this is gonna be way better for me because in this aspect, this, and this, I would say X, Y, Z. But now I'm realizing I was just masking something. And then you're working on it. So, just like in magic, there's no black and white magic. It's not good or bad. Okay. Your emotions may be unpleasant, but there's a purpose there. We just want to make sure and just see these emotions and your emotional state and where you are. But feeling these do not make you a bad person. These sometimes you're not going to have all the positive thoughts and rainbows and butterflies in your mind. Okay. But they serve a purpose. So we don't want to have a negative thought like, oh, here we go, another school year. You know what? No, no, no. I just, nope. We're going to have a great school year. It's just going to be this. I'm going to put on my beautiful rose colored glasses. Ugh, another school year. Why do I feel that way? I'm mentally tired. Why do I feel mentally tired? Well, because last year I wanted to do everything. I wanted to control everything or else it wouldn't get right. Okay, well, this year what could I do different? Now I'm starting to deconstruct a little bit. But shit, sometimes it's okay for me just to say, fuck, another school year. Ugh. Own it, feel it, embody it, and then continue to move on from it and see where it goes. And then I can tap in deeper. That's okay too. But I'm not gonna put my rose-colored glasses on and ignore it. I'm gonna have to stop and look at it and be like, okay, something's got to change because I honestly don't like feeling that way. And remember that uncomfortable feelings are a sign that things need to change. And sometimes that's your voice, sometimes that's your action, sometimes that's just showing up for somebody. Somebody, a group, a community, something that's happening in our society. Look at all of the protests happening. Peaceful. Now, sometimes the media misconstrues things, but if there's a walk happening and you're like, man, this does make me uncomfortable. I don't know, but you know what? Yeah, there's something that's got to change. And maybe you participate just in that walk. This is where you start to really engage and start listening to yourself. So when you engage in those kinds of healthy practices where you look at those things, studies have shown that people who engage in spiritual practices that are less prone to depression cope better with stress and experience better overall health and have a better psychological well-being. Don't be too hard on yourself for your mistakes. Growing is a process. This is why I called my podcast Susie's Enchanted Crossroads, because my gorgeous soul, I was at the crossroads. For 3 years, I did not step one foot in either direction because one, I was scared I would make the wrong choice. And what would happen to me? What if I do this wrong? What if I say this and it's bad? What if I get hurt? What if someone else gets hurt? Ugh, I'm not strong enough to do that. I don't know anything about that. Someone always knows more than me. My ego too kept me at the crossroads. And certain things was just like for 3 years. But we can go back on another thing where I really was spiritually bypassing my own self because I didn't want to burden anybody. I know this is happening for a reason. Remember, I grew up Catholic. So a lot of that was like, you know what? It's just I'm not praying hard enough. Maybe I'm just being punished. Um, you know, I don't know who else to turn to, but I know God will just show me the way without doing any other real work. Someone else has it worse than I do. I shouldn't complain. But that is also wasn't helping me. And those habits sometimes are really, really hard to break, especially when you're trying to cope with something difficult. I've said it before and I'll say it again. At the very end, I was asking for signs. And they were, when I tell you they were in my face, it was like getting a pie to the face. Like it was that much in my face. And I still told myself, nah, I'm just seeing what I want to see. You know, that's what the brain does. Once you put something in it, then it like actively looks for it without me even knowing. Nah. Spirituality can be such a beautiful and positive thing in your life. Many spiritual practices are. They are a great way to manage your stress, to really understand what you love, what's important to you, what traditions are important to you. But it's very, very important that we make our spiritual practice where we live in harmony and fulfilling ourselves with both the light and the dark, in quotes, I'm putting that. I want to thank you so much for those that stayed and listened all the way through. Um, like I said, I felt like this was just already an important episode to release, but it just, like I said, the grief is hitting me different. And I understand the work that I have to do. I just feel in a very limbo kind of space. And in sitting with everything, I know that's okay for me right now. But I know not to stay here too long to avoid whatever it is that maybe I'm avoiding or allowing the this shock to take its time because I'm very much like, all right, let's move on to the next. What's the next thing I can plan, and help myself. And it's not even helping myself. It's like, let me help other people. How is their family? How are these other friends? How are da 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 da? Instead of just allowing myself to sit in these emotions. And maybe that's why it's hitting me a little bit different, this grief, because I am allowing myself to go through it without having to sit and worry about things, about other people. This is honestly about myself. And that is a different territory for me because I am the nurturer. I give to everybody else. That's why I tell you when I offer my community Reiki, and I'm reminded of Ashlee because I always thought it was an honor when she was like, Susie, I love your Reiki. She's like, because everyone does it differently, right? She's like, because when you do it, I feel like we're doing the work together, gently removing, and it's not like a surgical procedure, like it's yanking things out. And I always thought, God, I told her, I was like, damn, what a compliment, which whoever gives me a compliment, I'm just like, oh my God, thank you. But when I offer these, it's not just, let me just offer this Reiki or I'm just want to get paid. It's really to refill your cup. And when I say it's important to fill your cup up, it's because I've been there and I make sure that if I'm in need of a session, I also get Reiki done. Or if I'm in need of a reading and I can't because I'm too close to the situation, I get a reading done. I also need to fill my cup. And you do too, because I know you pour into others. And sometimes we forget to fill our own cup up. To come together with ourselves is important. So thank you. And thank you to those that are listening that have reached out to me because I know some of you tell me on Instagram that you listen to the podcast. And to me, I always love getting that right. Um, I'm on the part where it's like, don't forget to leave a review because it's an algorithm, right? When you leave a review or type something out, it pushes it so more people can see. But at this point, I know it's getting to the people that need to see it. I love that you all share it. Please share it. Leave a review. I love that. To me, it's like I'm speaking out into the ethers in hopes that someone who needs to hear it will hear it. But I love hearing back from you. All right, gorgeous soul, drink your water. Maybe you and I can just take a deep breath in together. So maybe we put our feet on the floor. I'm going to put my feet on the floor because I was crisscross applesauce. I should roll our shoulders back, unclench the jaw. May we invite a big, deep inhale and exhale all the way out. Don't forget to give yourself a big hug. Go out into the world with your energy, whatever that is. The world needs it. You're important. You touch lives every single day, and you may not know it. Thank you for listening to my little story. Thank you for your supportive energy. I can feel it all the way over here. Don't forget to see all the links in the show notes and ways that if you need anything to chit chat with me, sign up for things that you might find helpful, whether it's my newsletter or my Patreon or, just see me on the socials or shooting me an email. I love you all so much. And until next time, I'll see you at the crossroads. Thank you for listening to this episode of Susie's Enchanted Crossroads. I love to hear what resonated with you, so don't be shy. Tap the links in the show notes to send a message or share your thoughts. Make sure you leave a review because your voice helps this community grow and guides others to find this podcast and their magic. Want even more enchantment between episodes? Sign up for my weekly newsletter for rituals, energy tips, and exclusive updates. And don't forget to follow me on my socials on Instagram and TikTok for your daily doses of magic, silliness, and behind-the-scene moments. If you felt a little magic today, share this episode with a friend who might need it. And until next time, I will see you at the crossroads.